Today we're talking about companies implementing a sabbatical culture, and its related opportunities and pitfalls. You have probably all encountered the term sabbatical year before. However, most of you will ask yourselves the question why it is called sabbatical year and what it actually means. Sabbatical finds its derivation in the term Sabbath, describing a recurring period of rest and renewal. In a work context, a sabbatical is an employee's extended leave from work. Its length varies from company to company and usually ranges from a few weeks up to 1 year. Many companies support their employees by allowing unpaid time off, whereas others also provide financial support, namely paid sabbaticals. Beyond that, there exist numerous other forms and designs of a sabbatical. The first sabbatical was implemented by Harvard University in the late 1800s as an incentive to attract faculty members. About 100 years after that, the US-American fast food company McDonald's introduced the first corporate sabbatical program. In an up-to-date context, if we think about either a company considering to implement a leave program or an individual thinking about taking a break, we have to ask ourselves first, whether a sabbatical is really needed, and if so, do the benefits outweigh the costs? On the upside for companies, introducing sabbaticals is a very good way to reduce costs and still preserve investment in good employees. It doesn't cause major financial disruption, and if being unpaid is a no-cost proposition for the enterprise. Secondly, offering break programs is a strong incentive for top performers who are looking for workplace flexibility. Particularly in times of war for talent, it is becoming increasingly necessary to find innovative ways to appeal to and retain star performers. One further and crucial reason to implement sabbatical years is an answer to employee burnout and helps to fight its effects intrinsically. Employees tend to return from such breaks refreshed and with new ideas to improve the organization. It furthermore creates a sense of company loyalty and commitment. Individuals feel being invested in, suggesting improved motivation and morale. Eventually, it can also be a great way of developing talent for aspiring employees to take on more leadership and vice versa, less dependency on single important employees. Nonetheless, there also exist considerable downsides for firms to take into account when thinking about implementing a sabbatical program. A paid sabbatical can be very expensive, as the company will have to cover salary, insurance and replacement costs. If top performers are temporarily lost, companies can suffer losses in profits and urgent issues to be addressed could pop up. Moreover, there exists a big risk and associated costs with employees deciding not to return to their job after their sabbatical ends. However, it rarely happens that employees do not return, and nowadays organizations often introduce strict retention policies to prevent sitting on the costs. If a sabbatical program is introduced and becomes increasingly popular, a high number of employees taking the offer would be a serious threat to the business, especially during busy seasons. In addition to that, if the employee taking the break feels bad about work being left behind, he might not be able to relax and use his time off effectively. Now we take a look at the employee up and downsides of a sabbatical year using a real-life example. Meet Nina and Conrad. They both work as consultants at Safford Consulting. Both are managers, and Conrad just returned from his sabbatical year 2 months ago.
Hi Conrad, nice seeing you again. How was your sabbatical year?
Oh wow, I'm so glad to see you again, Nina. Thanks for asking. Actually, I had the time of my life. I feel so refreshed and rejuvenated.
Wow, I wish I could do that as well. You know, after 7 years with the company, I could really use the sabbatical year. Don't get me wrong, I love working at Safford, but I just feel like I didn't really have time for myself and my family, especially during the last year.
I can completely understand you. When I took the year off, I started with spending more time with my wife and kids. And as I have an amazing partner, I was even able to fulfill my dreams by realizing projects I never had time before. I learned Mandarin and had language classes every day. I was able to travel through Southeast Asia for a month.
That is so impressive.
And you know what's the best thing about it? I will now be able to do more China-related projects as I always wanted to do. You know that Mike, our boss, didn't give me the chance to do so before, as I wasn't too familiar with Chinese culture and language. I think this was really the right step on my career path.
Yes, I remember, but do you remember Andrew from the technology consulting department? I have the feeling that he wasn't really welcomed here when he returned from a sabbatical. He didn't get any exciting projects anymore. And what's worse, he told me that he now has to pay twice as much into the pension fund than we do. Honestly, I'm a little afraid that a sabbatical year would be bad for my career. And I really need that promotion next year. After all, I want a good education for my children.
You have a point there. You will also have to save some money beforehand, and with the rents to pay, that's a bit tougher. I have to admit, I worked at a well-paid job in finance before starting at Safford, and due to the fact that I had no real time off for 2 years and no children, I was able to save a lot.
I can imagine. Thanks for sharing. May I ask you one more question?
Sure, I'm happy to help.
Weren't you afraid of missing something or not being able to reconnect on your return? In other words, didn't you experience any negative side effects?
Of course I did. You know how challenging the workload here is already, and when I left, they didn't hire a replacement for me, but apparently just let my team finish my job on the project, add on to what they already do. So they had to do a lot of over hours just because of me, and I feel very bad about that. Happily, my team is great and we think alike. It's the company's fault, not mine. Also, Amir, one of my high potentials, managed to take over my leading position very well and quickly. Nearly too good, haha. I love to see my team learn and grow on challenges. I feel that they grew a lot together better, and now my co-manager John is not as dependent on my knowledge anymore as he was before. I think it solely affected my relationship to one of the team's consultants, Tim, who reportedly wasn't too happy about my leave and the associated increase in workload.
I'm glad to hear so, despite the case with Tim. So now, thinking back, do you think it was worth it?
It was totally worth it. I just feel like I'm so much more creative in solving problems at work and not stressed such easily. Now I really know why I do what I do and that I actually love it. Honestly, I have just learned so much about myself.
Thank you, Conrad. Your words really inspire me to take the next step. I will think about whether I'll be able to take a sabbatical year.
After getting familiar with Nina's and Conrad's story, let's have a look at up-to-date data. In 2000, there was a big shift in benefits being offered by companies from 18% in 1999. 50% of the 100 best companies to work for in the US introduced sabbatical programs. But that's not it. The trend has been going on ever since, and 2017, 17% of all US companies provided their employees the opportunity to do a sabbatical. So after taking into account the pros and cons, what do employees have to consider when doing sabbatical program? Employees deciding for a sabbatical should make adequate arrangements with the company. That could mean meeting requirements and deadlines and training a replacement. Secondly, they should prepare financially to have enough money for basic living arrangements and also potential plans. Thereafter, it is important to develop a clear set of goals regarding what he or she wants to accomplish during the break, and lastly, how he or she plans to exit and re-enter the company, also taking into account the marketplace. And what do companies have to consider when implementing a sabbatical culture? If a company decides on introducing a sabbatical program, firstly, an appropriate time frame is to be discussed. Secondly, it is important to be detailed about benefits during the break, but also possible penalties for not returning from it. After setting the foundation, the enterprise should think about how to make smooth transitions between leaving and re-entering, and how a re-entered employee can apply his gained knowledge within the job. Coming to a conclusion, the benefits of sabbaticals clearly do outweigh costs. However, this is only the case if such a program is implemented properly and with a good understanding between both parties' expectations. If that is the case, a sabbatical will benefit both the employee and the organization, as their human capital will be returned to work less stressed, and very likely with an even bigger passion and commitment to their work and the company. Now we hope that we could provide you with a good idea of how to make use of sabbaticals. Thank you for your attention.